The Super Speedway Podcast is a Dream Bigger media production. For news, photos, show notes, and information about advertising on the podcast, visit www.thesuperspeedway.com.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Super Speedway.
Welcome to a special episode 93 of the Super Speedway Podcast, recorded Thursday, January 31st, 2019. I'm your host, Eric Young. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, James Cush. James, we were supposed to take a week off. We just couldn't stay away, could we?
No, we got really excited about testing today and had to hop on.
Right. It's
timely.
We're watching, as we're recording this, we're watching Jeff Gluck's feed on Twitter of the 8 p.m. drafting session at Las Vegas Speedway with the new aero package. Both James and I got to watch the first session earlier today. Did you catch? There was another one in the middle, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was a 6 o'clock session, and I didn't catch all of it. I caught a few laps of it, and it's looked pretty much the same throughout the day. But
yeah,
this session right now that we're watching it's been a little more gamey.
Yeah.
between the guys up front.
It looked a little bit more like a race, that's for sure. What you might expect in a race. It's starting to spread out a little bit now as they wind down, but I don't know. I'm liking what I've seen so far. I mean,
well, that's the reason I think we wanted to hop on the podcast is we both got a little giddy.
Right.
And I don't know if it's the Racing Jones or what.
I mean, there's cars on the track, so we're excited. And they don't look like race cars because they just have numbers on the doors and they're all black, but
you can't tell who's who.
Right. Especially with the crappy video, but
right.
By that I mean crappy quality of the video, not crappy video. Jeff Gluck, as James mentioned before we started recording, is doing a better job with his I'd assume iPhone than they were doing earlier today when they were using an actual camera on the roof, but
yeah. Yeah, they were zoomed in way too close. Well, and they've only have the one camera on the track. I know Las Vegas was trying to do like a 2-camera thing, but you can't really see down the backstretch. But no, I texted you earlier today and I said, hey, you're gonna watch the test. And,
I didn't even realize it was happening, so I'm glad you did.
And then we kind of got talking and we kind of liked what we saw, and I thought, man, let's hop on a podcast, just talk about it real quick, even if it's just a short little podcast tonight, just because, I don't know, it was fun, right?
Yeah.
It was fun to have cars on the track, but the package, I texted you earlier and I said, I went from cautious to cautiously optimistic.
Right.
Is how I'm feeling so far. How about you, man? Are you kind of excited right now?
I think I've been a step ahead above you on the scale pretty much all along. Yep. I was really excited about this package when it was first announced, and then kind of started to get skeptical. And the All-Star race didn't really show me everything I wanted to see, but it was good. And then the Michigan race with the Xfinity cars seemed a little promising, but also seemed disappointing too. So I've kind of been back and forth, but I still feel like I've been a rung higher than you. And yeah. I'm teetering on cautiously optimistic to kind of can't wait to see this thing in actual racing conditions. So I'm not quite a step above you, James, but I'm a little bit above you right now on that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way we've kind of been consistently.
Consistently, I think is the word. Yeah, we're supposed to be off this week, guys. So
I know, I wasn't ready for it. But I've definitely been dragging my feet, and I'm not afraid to admit that I've been sitting on the fence on this whole thing, even from the All-Star race on. I just kind of been dragging my feet a little bit, like I don't know. And at first on this podcast, I was like, "This is stupid. Don't do it." And, from this test, and I don't want to get too excited about a test, but just from this test, I can admit that I think I was wrong. This could work here. I at the beginning of this whole thing, I was like, "This is not going to work. This is dumb." I don't know, but it looks good so far. Looks good.
Yes, it does. And the caution's out right now as we're watching this. It looks like the drafting session is over. So we've seen what we're going to see on the track as far as this. I don't know if they're doing any more. I know they're testing still tomorrow.
Yeah, this is it for tonight. Yeah. But Gluck's battery made it through the. I think he started the video at like 25%, so he was worried he wasn't going to be finished. So
nice.
He did good.
Well, shout out to Jeff Gluck for that. That was awesome.
Yeah,
I'm glad we got to see it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it might be a pretty good deal. I think it's going to be exciting. I cannot wait to see it at Michigan. I think Michigan's going to be fun this year to see what we get out of it.
Yeah, they might be going wide open around Michigan.
I don't think they're going to be lifting at all at Michigan.
No.
So today, we had the test, and the drivers got to talk a little bit in the press conference. I pulled some audio, so we'll kind of bounce that around here between as we talk about it. I wanted to play some audio from Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch was in there for like 8 minutes. I pulled a minute and a half of audio from him. But I think Kyle, first of all, I want to say, James, you'll second me on this. Twitter sucked today, as it frequently does. A lot of people willing to completely shoot this down just during single car runs. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous, as you would expect Twitter to be. And there was a quote. Jeff Gluck actually, again, he tweeted out a quote from Kyle, and you messaged me, James, and said this is the Kyle car tomorrow sucks moment. But the thing is I think the quote was taken out of context, and you're gonna hear it in this audio clip. I don't think Kyle's hating on it. He's talking. He's cautious about it as well.
Yeah, is he cautiously optimistic like we are?
No, he's not. I don't think he's a fan of it, but he's not doing like Brad Keselowski did at Michigan last year and just ripping on it. So
Right.
let me play this clip, a minute and a half of what Kyle had to say. We'll talk a little bit more about it, and then we've got a couple other clips from some other drivers. So here's what Kyle had to say about it. I'm comparing a lot to the truck series, and that might be a good thing.
Reminds me a lot of the trucks. When we were here with the truck race last spring with myself and Brett Moffitt, we ran 1-2 and kind of drove away. We could get in a draft together and drive away from the rest of the field. We were the ones that weren't lifting as much as some of the rest of the competition was, and I had a hard time passing Brett. I couldn't get by him. I was behind him for 30 laps and couldn't do anything to get by him. There's just not enough off-throttle time for the guys for handling to come into play. You're under the tire. You're driving through the corners under the limits of the tire, so your speeds are just too slow, and that doesn't allow you the runs on the straightaway doesn't allow you to get big enough runs to blitz guys on the inside or the outside or whatever it might be. I did a couple of those today because guys were getting out of the gas, but once you get into race situations and guys figure out what exactly they need to be a little bit better, those aren't going to happen as easy as they were here today. We've taken the driver skill away from the drivers in this package. Anybody can go out there and run around there and go wide open. You could probably do it. So, it's just it's a lot more of a mental game. It's going to be a lot more skill. It's going to be a lot more chess match thinking, how you're going to make moves and how daring you be in making some of those moves, and how hard of a time the guy that you're trying to pass is going to give you back and suck you around or spin you or whatever it might be. So we'll see how all that plays out. But overall, it's going to be interesting.
So let me argue with Kyle a little bit here, because he says you're taking the driver's skill out of it, and then he goes on to explain why the driver's skill is still necessary with this package.
Yeah. Well, I think that was his way of taking a shot. He's taking a shot at it, but then he's backtracking a little bit.
Right.
Because I think he realized what he said might have been a little bit harsh.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking when I heard that.
It's very possible. And so he compares it to the truck series, and you're going to hear it. Actually, maybe you're not going to hear it anymore. Austin Dillon's going to talk about it. We'll listen to that clip in a couple minutes. But he's comparing it to the truck series, and he's comparing it in a negative way to the truck series. But how many times have we talked about on this podcast how the truck series is the best show of the weekend? You
right.
know, and Kyle did. He did. I don't have the audio from it, but he did talk in the press conference about the fact that his opinion with the truck series compared to the Cup series is because there's such a variation between the top guys and the slower guys in the experience in the truck series that people make mistakes, and it allows people to get runs and things like that you're not going to have in the Cup series, because the drivers in the Cup series, the teams in the Cup series are going to be more perfect. I'll use perfect in quotes. They're going to make fewer mistakes in the Cup series. He says that as the racing is going to be worse in the Cup series because of it. I disagree, because that just means that pack's going to be closer together than what you have in the truck series. If you go to a truck race, especially now that the fields are a little bit smaller and some of those bigger teams are out of it, so there is a real big disparity in the teams. It's like an ARCA race. You've got 20, maybe 10 to 15, 20 trucks up at the front, and then you got just a straggle of the rest of the trucks around the track. I mean, within 5 laps of a green flag at Michigan, they're all spread out. You're not going to have that here because these guys are all going to be really close. So you're going to have 30 cars that are going to be really close and even to be able to run in that pack. And I use pack in quotes too, because I think we've seen from these tests is we don't see pack racing.
Yeah,
but
we see
close racing.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be better with this package in the Cup Series. What do you think, James?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, and what we've seen, and if anybody hasn't seen any of the testing yet, NASCAR.com or Jeff. We plugged Jeff quite a bit, but he's got some good video on it already. But what we've seen is these bubbles, and when we were talking right before we came on the podcast, we were talking about how that second place car doesn't seem like they can make a pass for the lead.
Right.
It's when a group of cars can gang up and then start to make a run to catch up, and that's when they start to make their passes. And yeah, I think that's a little bit different than the Truck Series. You don't see that so much because, like you said, Eric, I agree with you. There's so many good cars that let's say a group with Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, and whoever falls off, they're just going to get in a single file line. They're going to run right back up there.
Right.
They're not going to continuously drift back because the leader can't get away. The front 2 cars can't get away. They're stuck at that point. Once you get to the front, you're stuck.
And that's one thing that Austin talked about too, Austin Dillon, today in his press conference. I don't believe I have it in the audio from him. But he talked about the potential that there could be a little bit of that tandem stuff that we saw on the restrictor plates before with this package as well. That again, you get behind, or even when you're running group qualifying, if they do group qualifying still with this package, that you could really get that second car could really suck up and get that extra speed. And so that has a potential with this package too that we didn't have before. So one thing I did notice in the test, I did notice some cars getting aero tight still, which is something that we keep trying to eliminate and keep failing at. But it's hard to say, okay, well, this doesn't get rid of that because it was literally the first time anybody was on the track with it. So
yeah, and what we saw today is these teams are going to take all of this data,
right?
And the next time they're on the track, it could look completely different.
Not only that, but none of these guys are running hard. I mean, they're pushing it a little bit, but none of them want to wreck anything. They don't want.
Kyle's giving it, and who looked like they were driving pretty hard is Johnson.
Yeah,
Johnson kept trying to get to the front.
Jimmy's got a lot to prove this year.
Yeah, he's on a mission, man.
So
he is on a mission.
So you're seeing guys running not on the edge, first of all, right now.
And they're all at base. They all have a base of this package.
Right.
And Penske's going to go to their shop. Gibbs is going to go to their shop, and they're going to start tweaking.
Well, and that's a good point. So let's jump into Austin Dillon's comments. He talks a little bit about how he thinks this package is going to race and what they're going to do to make it work better. So here's what Austin had to say.
Clint and I hooked up a couple times. I tried to push him by a car, and it was kind of frustrating that I couldn't push him past the side-by-side battle. But it kept side-by-side battle was pretty intense, and it created 3 wide. I think you'll see a lot of 3 wide this year to clear someone, because if their guy is slower and a guy goes under him and can't pass him for a lap, the next guy gets a huge run from that bubble and can create a 3 wide pass down low. So I think there's draft studies that will continue to go on from each team to figure out where to place their car to make the best pass. It's definitely going to be hard, but you're going to see passing. It's going to be more passing than we have in the last couple years, I feel like, and it's out of spread out racing and stuff like that. So you'll be able to make moves, I believe. I think like I said, the draft study will be important for each car, because the car it picks up speed at different areas. That it punches a big hole in the air. So kind of finding those advantages will be key, and making your car balanced around that. I mean, it's like I said, it's very similar to truck racing. I feel like when I was out there, and if I would have got my balance right, I feel like I could have gone up through the cars a little better. I was too loose, and I'd made some good passes, but if it was like what I wanted the feel for, I feel like I could have made more moves. So, yeah, it's racing, and I've always loved the trucks, so it's got a similar feel.
That's music to my ears.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's gonna make if things keep moving in that direction, NASCAR has screamed for parity from these teams, and I think the fan base wants parity too. They don't want to see a big three, quote unquote,
Right.
right? They want to see guys like, I don't know, the fan base isn't a huge Austin Dillon fan, but they want to see guys. They want to see parity. They want to see like the De Benedettos. They want to see the underdog stories, and this package could, from what we saw today, I mean, it could lead to some of that stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I like what Austin said though. He kind of put it the way we've been talking about it too, what we've been seeing. So it's
Right.
good to just get that feel. I guess from our perspective, because we're I don't know if we're experts by any means, but
Right.
take it for what it's worth, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot tougher to dominate this year as
Yeah.
far as race by race and dominate in the championship like you had someone like Kevin Harvick or the big three in general last year. God, I want to retire that phrase
Oh,
so
yeah,
much,
please.
but
Please.
hopefully we won't have to worry about that this year. So, I mean, and it's the whole thing is up in the air and we don't know what to expect. The only race that we know what to expect right now is Daytona because the package hasn't changed for Daytona.
Yep, we're running restrictor plates one last time at Daytona, and then that's gone too. So
And then your short tracks, I guess. Your short tracks are still going to be the same
yeah,
package.
yeah,
so.
all your short tracks they're gonna be pushing 750 horsepower.
Yep.
And then this package drops the cars down to 550.
Yep.
Is where their base is going to be.
And James, they just looked so slow, didn't they?
No,
they didn't.
They
didn't look any slower to me.
Yeah, I guess you can tell when they are in a pack like they are, you don't really notice it as much, right?
Right.
You're more focused on the battles around the track than you are really noticing the speed.
Here's the deal. At Michigan this year, in the August race, I went right down by the fence. Actually, I did it in June and August. Went right down by the fence in turn 1. And I stood there for ARCA in June. I stood there for Xfinity in June. I stood there for the Cup cars in August. And I couldn't tell the difference between the ARCA car going by me and the Cup car going by me. And the Cup cars are going 218 right there, a foot away from me. The ARCA cars are doing 20 miles an hour less than that going into turn 1. Couldn't tell the difference. Now, I will say, when I was trying to take pictures on the inside of the track, I could tell the difference. But that's because I was moving the camera and trying to keep up with the cars. If I put the camera down and stood there and watched them, couldn't tell the difference. Had no idea.
Yeah, and your casual NASCAR fan isn't going to know the difference.
No.
The people that really pay attention to this stuff, the real diehards, yeah, they're going to notice these little things.
Did you notice the difference in speeds when they put the restrictor plates on at the super speedways? I mean, I never noticed the difference. It doesn't look any different to me. If you go back and look at old footage, the only thing that looks different is they're not racing in packs.
Yeah, they're spaced out, right? Yeah.
That's it. Otherwise, They look the same speed. And I'll tell you what, we've said it before. We've talked about Eldora and the Truck Series race there. The reason that Eldora is so good, well, other than the fact that the track is great, and Tony does a good job with the track and all that, but the reason that short tracks are good, the reason that these other tracks, that Eldora does well, the short tracks, Bristol, maybe not as much, Martinsville, the reason they're good is because they're slower. You have better racing when they're slower. If you go to your local track and go watch the super late, let's say asphalt, because dirt to me is different.
The Bombers, baby, the Bombers.
Yeah, if you go to an asphalt track and watch a race, your Bombers and your 4-cylinders are the better classes because they're 3 wide around the track and they're wide open. Whereas the late models are lifting and you can't get side by side. And super late models, everybody goes to watch super late models, but a lot of times it's the worst race of the night.
Well, and too, is when you lower the price tag at your local short track, it equals the playing field. And when you get up to the super late models, it's just like the Cup Series. You've got these teams that spend big time money. They go out there and kick everybody's butt. Well, now with this package, just like your local short track, it's kind of leveling the playing field a little bit.
If you want to see cars go fast, go watch drag racing because then it matters. Then it matters how fast you're going. That's the only thing that matters is acceleration and how fast you're going.
Exactly.
Otherwise,
we want to be entertained.
Okay, drag racers, don't get mad at me. I know it's all about timing and all that stuff too. But that's about speed. This is not about speed. This is about beating the other guy to the finish line, which is not necessarily about speed. It's just being faster than the other guy. So, Kurt Busch, very calm and quiet this weekend. He's with a new team, so isn't as fiery as maybe we've seen Kurt Busch in the past. Maybe, in his twilight years in the Cup Series, so not as riled up as you'd normally see him. He talked a little bit about it and didn't really have a whole lot to say in the press conference. But both he and Clint Boyer kind of echoed the same thing as to why NASCAR is doing this, why it's important that NASCAR is doing it. So here's what Kurt had to say.
What we're trying to do with this package is just have a better on-track product, and that is to get the cars side by side, to have the draft down the straightaway, to have the drivers have the option more so than the engineers as far as where the speed comes from. So it's more of a chess game, trying to balance out this setup and this package right now, and we just have to have better racing on track, side by side action. And that big draft that we saw earlier today, I was wide open and I lost the draft in the back, and that's very similar to what you would see at Daytona or Talladega. So it's just going to happen at a 1.5 mile track versus a big track.
And Clint kind of expanded on that a little bit, talking about basically that there's one group of people that need to be pleased by this package.
There's really only one voice that matters. I mean, it's the fans, the butts in the seats. That's the voice that we're all working for. No different than it's always been. Any business that's a sporting event, whether it's football game, basketball, baseball, NASCAR, it doesn't matter what it is. It's all about the interaction and the fans showing up and enjoying what they see. The entertainment value of our sport's always been great. And this is obviously a step to try to make it even better.
Clint a little more subdued than normal too.
Yeah.
But they did have an audio problem in the middle of the press conference, and he became Clint. So.
Oh, great.
I guess the big test will be the first time we see this on the track on an actual race weekend. And and I think we're gonna what's really gonna be telling is if all of a sudden we've got a bunch of these guys that normally run in the back that are running up front, consistently, then maybe it wasn't what it was supposed to do. But I'll tell you what, you're going to still see guys. You're still going to see the Kevin Harvicks, the Kurt Busches, the Kyle Busches, these guys, Jimmy Johnson, these guys that are good at what they do, these guys that are great drivers are going to learn to drive this package better than anybody else. They're still going to be running up front. You're still going to see the same guys running well. It's just going to be tougher for them to beat the other guys that are running well. And I think that's what we need.
Yep, and they're going to have to be on it from the start of the race all the way through. There's not going to be any downtime anymore. So, man, what a good day.
I know. I like it.
I was excited. Like you when we were texting earlier. It was good to be excited again.
Yeah.
That's what I felt today. So.
Yep, I like you getting excited, James. I just need to get you back out of the track now, and then we'll be good.
Yeah, it was good, man.
I'll start working on that.
Okay, yeah, one day at a time.
There you go. Anything else we want to say about it? We're not going to hit on any news this week. We just wanted to pop in here and talk about the test. Anything
That's
I missed,
what we
James?
call a micro pod, right?
There you go. Yeah.
No, I think we wanted to hop on. It was timely, and we had a chance to do it. And I don't know, get this pod out there for the world to enjoy.
There you go. I'll probably be on social media a little bit more the next couple weeks as the season gets ready to start. James, how can they find you on social media?
At James Cush on Twitter.
You can find me at TSuperspeedway on Twitter. You can find the podcast on Facebook at facebook.com/thesuperspeedway. Our website is thesuperspeedway.com. You can find articles on there from past races, show notes, even though there wasn't much show notes today, but those will be up there as well, and all kinds of other stuff. So check that out. You can find the podcast there as well. You can also find the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud. If you want to become a patron, help us get to the track, help us improve the podcast and do other things, visit www.patreon.com/thesuperspeedway. James will be back next week, right?
Yeah, next week.
Next week we'll be previewing a race. Not a regular season race, but we'll be previewing a race. We'll be back to talk about the Advanced Auto Parts Clash. I think it's still Advanced Auto Parts, right? I think so.
I think
we had this discussion last week.
Yeah, we had Gander Outdoors taking over the duels. So, and that was the big change. So yes, you're right.
Yeah. So I have a question. not to extend this podcast, but I thought about this the other day, and I'm going to forget to talk about it next week. Do we need the duels anymore?
I still like the duels.
I do too, but do we? There's no point to them.
We don't need them, but I don't want them to go away. I like my duels.
Yeah, I agree, and I guess they're the best way to have a heat race, because unlike with the Xfinity cars, when they tried the heat race thing, you would wreck a car and you couldn't run the race then because your car was wrecked. Now with the duals, you can still get the backup out and run them.
Right.
So I don't know. I just wish the duals meant something anymore.
Yeah, they were more fun when they meant something. That's for sure.
So all right,
The Keselowski brothers tag team and way to the front, that kind of thing.
Yeah, one of the last times it meant anything, I didn't get to watch it because I was on a plane.
I think it might mean something this year, though. I think we've got enough teams coming down that I think it's going to mean something this year.
Think so?
I think there's going to be some spots up for grabs.
I hope so. Last time to run that package, so they gotta get it out there and tear some cars up, and then put some new clips on them. We'll start running a new package.
Right.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week to preview the Advanced Auto Parts Clash, the duels, all that jazz, and get ready to go racing for the 2019 season. It's crazy that it's finally almost here. So until then, everybody, let's go racing.